Experience hospitality the Northwest way at the Everglades Hotel. Located on the banks of the River Foyle, the Everglades Hotel is just minutes from the centre of Derry, Londonderry, with free on-site guest car parking. Whether you're here for a family meal, a big celebration, or simply a peaceful retreat, will make your experience as memorable as the sights in the city. Visit Everglades Hotel Derry for accommodation bookings, the latest menus, live shows and events, and much, much more. See you there.
Hi everyone, and welcome back to the Gaelic Lives podcast. We now know the draw for the All-Ireland quarterfinals after the preliminary quarterfinals from the weekend, and they served up some brilliant games. And now, I suppose the game of the weekend was down on Galway. It was billed as the game of the weekend, and it lived up to expectation. It was brilliant.
Yeah, I was down in Cavan yesterday covering the Tyrone Miners. They're all there in semi-final against Roscommon, and those words started to filter through. That Down were only a couple of points behind, whereas at an early stage, it looked like Galway were probably going to run away with it. I think they're 10 points up at half time, but I suppose it's just a measure of Down's progress that they're making and continue to make under Conor Laverty. They were only beaten by 2 points. Some brilliant individual performances. No more so from more Murdoch. Sorry. In the end, it just wasn't enough. But it's plenty to build upon from a Down perspective. I think in terms of why they didn't win the game, maybe just lacking a little bit of depth. That's all really.
Yeah, that's probably what it comes down to, Mal, when it comes to this stage of the championship. But down, they're work in progress, and certainly when they're coming back next year, having been relegated, they could end up in the Tailteann Cup. But should they get into the race for Sam, they're going to be a team that nobody wants to go to. Certainly, Neary's a place nobody wants to go to.
Definitely, and I think it has brought a bit of excitement back to the county, and it's something that Conor Laverty and any of the lads that you would have interviewed after games, they touched on. They wanted to be playing the big teams, and that's very much the case. I think the disappointing factor is that, as you say, Sean, they might not be in the All-Ireland series next year, obviously because of relegation, and that's very sad in terms of what the progress they've made. But the game itself was. I probably made the wrong choice. I went to Ballybofey instead, but we were able to watch it on GA Go. Just got there early in time to watch it, and it was brilliant. And like they got off to a decent start, and I think maybe Pat Haven dropped a kick out that led to a 2-pointer. I think for Rob Finnerty, and it was all looking bleak for Down, and then all of a sudden. John McGo's goal, that kick out from Burns over the top to Murdoch, and it just shot the game back into life. And then by half time, there's 10 points in it. As Niall says, like you thought, like Galway were going to run away with it, and like Ronan Burns was immense in goals again, and it actually was going to take something special to beat him, and it was Shane Walsh, because he, as much as he hadn't been on the ball an awful lot, he was good with what he did, but. I think it was a big enough call in the lead up to that goal. Like, I think it was Andrew Crimmins. I couldn't actually see the person. I think it was he got the back of John Maher's elbow, and I don't think it was intentional. But at the same time, John Maher's a big man. He was breaking out of a tackle, but it was a head injury, and then Down were caught out of possession. And you see instances where head injuries are always stopped. And I haven't heard any of the Down interviews yet. I'm not sure what their take on it was, but I feel they definitely would have a grievance there, because when's player welfare, not player welfare, and then all of a sudden it's in the back of the net. But to be fair, they came back like I think 2 pointers early in the second half. Like Daniel Guinness kicked a brilliant spinner from it looked like outside of the boot, and all of a sudden they were back in the game. And I remember looking at the score graphic one time. It was like 120 to 115, and it was like very, very much game on. But the Sads, very, very exciting end to end, and probably over the winter they're probably going to have to find a balance between a shootout and tying things up a wee bit more at the back, which is easier said than done. But I think I've said it on this podcast a few times. I think they deserve immense credit, and I suppose from chatting to a few Down people at Park Esler before the Derry and Dublin game, they're sort of the opinion that Conor Laverty's nearly got everybody in the panel who who should be. So maybe it's just a case of the county trying to create a wee bit more depth, especially with a bit of size.
Somebody that's not going to be there now is Keelan Mooney. I think he sort of announced his retirement on Twitter on Sunday night after the game. He made a massive impact off the bench. I think he kicked 2 points and he won a kick out. And he's been a massive servant for Down. He made his debut in 2011, and he's going to leave a big gap of experience now that he's not there.
Yeah, very talented player, and I think he came in most of the Raiders as a schoolish footballer. He was way ahead of a lot of his a lot of that crop, if you know what I mean. Yeah, I saw the tweet last night that suggested that he's retiring. He might come back, you never know. It wouldn't be the first time a player comes out of retirement. We've seen that this year already with likes of Michael Murphy, but yeah, it'll definitely be a loss if he has hung up the boots for the final time.
Yeah, never say never. So before we move on, we're going to hear from Conor Laverty now. We caught up with him after the game at Newry, so we'll hear from him now.
Bad feeling in your stomach now, sick feeling in your stomach that periods in that second half, the game was there to be won. Put a lot of work in this week, and we knew that taking any team in the country to Newry, we felt we had an opportunity to win it, and we definitely didn't think that today was going to be our last day in the championship. We had massive belief in the talent that we had and the work that we have done. And in the second half there, whenever we were in our stride, thought we were causing them serious problems. But maybe they just got a breakaway in the middle of it. Whenever we had a period of dominance, they got a breakaway and sort of maybe got a score or two and sort of kept them just edging that wee bit in front. And then to get it back to maybe 2 in it at that stage, and then Peter Cook to get out of traffic whenever we thought maybe there was a turnover coming, and then to get the goal. But to respond again, it's massive credit to the lads to keep going and to keep plucking away. But gutted but massively proud of the group of players. At half time last year, you would have been saying the game's dead and buried, but it's technically only 5 points really, with that significance of a breeze. Probably would have been a wee bit disappointed now that the play wasn't stopped for their goal, and particularly whenever our player had to come off with a facial blood injury. It was just a loose arm, nothing in it, accidental, but whenever there's a player with a serious injury, even in the same games last night, the amount of times the game was stopped just for head injuries and things, I don't think the referees need to be playing on. There was no problem with Galway had the ball and they were going to retain the ball. Actually, the player down there, his player was involved in the move that led to the goal, so it was probably but I'm not one person, I'm not the kind of person to give off about refs or to cry, because I think there's decision games to and fro. You get a rub of the green one moment and then it swings and about. I think that whenever we had our tails up and the wind was in our sails and the crowd was behind us, we probably were moving really, really well, and that maybe just knocked us a wee bit, and it left the door open for them just to get maybe a foothold back on it. Like we were pressing them, we were winning our kickouts, and the momentum was fully with us, and maybe we just didn't utilise our scoring opportunities. I have full belief in this Down team, so I wasn't coming here today hoping the Down were going to play well. I came here today with a massive belief that these players could perform at this level, and that this is a standard that we want to be played at. But what we did talk to the players about, do you want to be coming here today to Park Esther playing in a preliminary quarter final in front of, what was there, I'm not sure what, 14,000 people, or would you rather be playing? I came to a league match here against Kerry one year and there wasn't 150 people at it, or playing against teams in a Tailteann Cup where only a couple of hundred people against it, and that's nothing against the Tailteann Cup, because it was a stepping stone, and if we're not in circumstances next year, you could end up being back in it. But that's where players want to be. That's where this group of young Down players with a serious mindset and a serious desire to compete at the top table, and we would have felt in games all throughout this year that it was maybe just our experience that has held us back slightly in key moments of games. If you can't gain then experiences playing and beating teams by 7 or 8 points and playing against maybe teams of a certain level, you learn experiences by playing against the top teams and learning what they have done, seeing how Galway took the sting out of the game maybe for a period whenever there was maybe 31 minutes gone. They controlled it, they didn't kick the 45, they didn't take the shot, they kept the ball, and playing against the top teams who have all that experience of competing for Sam Maguire's year in year out. I think that'll only stand to this group of players.
So, Mal, as you said, you were in Ballybuffet on Sunday. You said you made the wrong choice. This game was a game at half time, definitely. Laois were well in it. I think 2 points between the teams at half time, but Donnygal were awesome after the break.
I very much so, and I suppose the story of the first half was just how wasteful Donnygal were. Like at one point it was 5-all, but like Donnygal had 12 shots at that point, and one of them was a goal chance that Oisín Gallen pulled wide. So you were starting to think, like, the way Donnygal play, they always seem to get a shot, always seem to create a chance. So you're just wondering, is this going to dry up eventually? But and then all of a sudden they got a goal. They got a goal, a very well worked move, I'd have to say, and it probably sums up the danger of Sean Patton, because it's back to that thing that we talk about: do you sit off or do you push up? And the 2 goal chances in the first half probably summed up his danger. Like, they sat off, and for the first one, Finbar Rorty was involved in it. He had an excellent game, actually. Carried the ball upfield, and Langan cut inside, and Oisín Gallen, to be fair to the keeper, now McDonald, he was out very, very quick to narrow the angle. So that was a goal chance coming from, sitting off. But then when they pressed up, Patton went over the top. I'm not sure if Murphy got a touch. I honestly don't know, but it ended up again in Gallen's hands, and Conor Laverty finished it to the net. And that was probably the difference that Sean brings. But I think what was probably frustrating as well, like Donnygal had a chance to go, I think it was at 4 up, and Kieran Moore just took the wrong option. In Hooter time, where they had a chance to engineer a shot, and then Ryan Burns, who had hit 3 before that, he made it 4, and that more or less it gave Laois something to hang on to, and then they brought it back to a point. And at a stage early in the second half, like, Michael Murphy had 2 chances that he missed that you would often think he would take, and then he picked up a booking, and there was a free in, and all of a sudden the game was a wee bit disjointed from Donnygal's point of view, and Laois had every chance. And then I suppose Kieran Thompson, I didn't realise this until Jim said it in the interview, it was his first ever championship goal for Donnygal, but it was his 50th consecutive appearance at senior championship level, which is immense from the point of view of staying injury free and being playing to a standard that you're going to be selected at inter-county level 50 times in a row. And he finished that goal, and I think there was a switch of play where there was a wee bit of variation in Donnygal's play at that stage, but you got the feeling that was game over, and it probably was. And again, Donnygal tagged on. There was a sort of a procession of scores in the end where they never really looked like losing, and it was probably a big advantage going into this weekend's game of Monaghan that the game was dusted. They could bring people on, and they didn't have what they had last week in the Hyde, where you've got the energy after the game where it's hard to come down before you get yourself back up again. So they don't have that. And it was very noticeable with 5 minutes to go, the Donnygal subs had actually walked around the pitch to the tunnel area just to make sure that they got offside as quickly as possible, so there was no hullabaloo at the end, which is probably a carbon copy of what happened, a polar opposite of what happened to Laois, where their team bus took a wrong turn on the way to the game. But I heard Jerry Brennan's quotes. He did say something along the lines of he joked about it, that took a wrong turn, but it didn't actually affect their first half performance because they brought plenty to it. But I suppose it was a bit of a weird storyline in Ballybuffet here, in the motorbike sirens with about 45 minutes to throw in and another team coming in. But Donnygal in no danger, and the good thing is that they didn't pick up any more injuries, although they'll hope to get Keelan McGonigal back maybe for this weekend against Monaghan, especially the way Monaghan run through the middle. He'd be very valuable.
I think Mal makes a good point now in terms of the quarter-final, that Donegal finished the game with, there was lots of time left to play when the game was out of Laois' reach, and they were fit to take off Michael Murphy. I think they took off Ryan McHugh. They were fit to take off maybe, them players that have been about a while that could do with the wee bit of maybe hours rest. So that probably is a help going into Croke Park this weekend.
Yeah, I think statistically it's quite uncommon for a team coming through the preliminary quarterfinals to reach the semi-finals. Jim McGuinness, obviously isn't particularly happy with the situation. He's back in the change next year to sort of backdoor format. They're still in a good enough spot heading into the quarters, given how their last couple of matches have gone. Really, I mean, they sort of steamrolled Cavan, did the same more or less against Laois. So if they don't get through to the semis, I don't think it'll be because of burnout, Sean.
Yeah, I'd agree with that. Now. I think they're just coming along nicely, and they'll be excited about Crook Park. And as you say, Mal, if they could get Keelan McGonigal back on the field, I think he's really their only man missing, is he?
Yeah. Well, Owen McHugh dropped out of the 26. I actually forgot to ask, was that an injury or just selection related? Because like Niall O'Donnell was back yesterday and got himself a score, and a lot of people were questioning his form, but like he basically won them 2 Ulster titles, with just being able to score at crucial stages. So that's going to be very, very important for them, and it maybe turns up the heat a wee bit on their forward line. Like Patrick McBeardy come off the bench, like he's the captain, and he had been really good form earlier in the season. So and Dara Whale, so maybe they are generating a wee bit of depth, Sean. And I agree with Niall. I don't think burnout will be the issue. I think the likes of that debate about the extra game, it probably comes into question whenever the results actually happen and people latch onto it as either an excuse or sure weren't they energized and momentum was their friend. So I think that always dictates the side of it. But I do believe that Galway and Donnygal should be guaranteed Sunday games. I know there's an issue with tickets with Tyrone, Dublin, and you both men are involved here. Sure counties like Kerry and Armagh, like they'll bring a big attendance, but I think the players' level of preparation should always come first. And from the point of view, like if you're playing week on week, if you're going to have jeopardy for finishing top, lack of jeopardy, there's jeopardy that if you finish top, it's in your own hands, like Tyrone and Armagh. But I still think it's unfair to have a system where somebody's going to play a day earlier when it can be definitely factored out. Like I was chatting to another county manager over this past couple of weeks, and he says it doesn't make a major difference, but it actually can be a difference in you actually having a training session that week or not. Because if it's on Saturday, you might not actually train that week because of the way it falls. So every camp's different, and I agree with Niall. Burnout won't be an issue, but I think in the interest of fairness, I think that's the way it should be. And by the time some people are listening to this podcast, the fixtures will probably already be out, so it'll be irrelevant.
Tyrone, Dublin on Armagh Kerry double header sounds good now, doesn't it? There'll be no empty seats in Crook Park.
Yeah, no, it's class. I'm really looking forward to it already. But either way, Tyrone are going to get Galway or Dublin, so it's going to be a bit of a blockbuster. So yeah. It'll be very interesting. I know as Mal says, and some of our listeners will know the draw by the time they tune in. But I think the pictures will be released at 2:30 this afternoon in terms of the gifts and whatnot. So it'll be interesting.
There'll be some queue at the toll. Lads.
No, I can't wait.
Believing early.
Go to Ove.
I go right around it. So we're going to hear from Jim McGuinness, and then we're going to hear from our sponsors, Hastings Hotels, and then we'll be back and we'll go through the Cavan and Fermanagh games and our highlights as well. So here's Jim McGuinness.
Jim, back to Crook Park, back to All-Ireland quarterfinals. You're there. What's the thoughts?
Very happy, obviously. One game more than we wanted, but at the same time, we're happy to take the game. Whenever we got beat against Tyrone, we knew that we'd be in this situation potentially, and we were kind of targeting these 3 weekends. So we're delighted we have an opportunity at the third game now. That's the most important thing, and we'll take the positives from the day. Obviously, loads and bits and pieces to work on as well, particularly in the first half. In terms of decision making and stuff, but apart from that, very good display in the second half, and we're clinical and done a good job to get over the line and get over the line with 20 minutes to spare basically, and give us a chance to get some players on the pitch as well that have been doing well in training.
At 5-2 you had a goal chance that you didn't take. Ryan Burns gets the next 3 scores. What's your thoughts there? Because I think you had something like 5 points from 12 shots or something, so is that a concern?
It's always a concern when you're leaving scores behind you, and I'm not sure what the overall tally of wides was, and obviously we had goal chances as well. You want to be ruthless and you want to be clinical all the time, and we were that in the second half. But the first half, we were trying to find our way, and goal scoring opportunities are always, they're an individual moment, and you have to trust the lads, to do the right thing. And it wasn't far away, I would say, but at the same time, it was a crucial moment in the game because it could have given us a bit of breathing space.
What was your thoughts on there at half time?
We had a bit of sorting out to do. Louth brought a certain level of tactical awareness to the game in the first half. They were asking questions of us, and they were exposing us and leaving us open, and they were playing through the D and all those types of things. So it was important just to sit them down, go through those things, and make some adjustments. And I'm not sure what we conceded, maybe 5 points in the second half. So that was very positive from our point of view that we were able to do that. And then obviously with that means you're getting turnovers, and then when the turnovers are coming, you've got the chance then to get up the field and make that count as well. So it was a double-edged sword for us in the first half. We weren't being clinical, and we were turning the ball over, and they were hurting us. In the second half, we were able to defend well, and that gave us a platform to attack, and we were putting the ball dead. So that would probably be the summary of the game, to be honest.
Serious energy in that first half with the likes of Rorty, Moore. Is that what you're looking for? Because when you turn the ball over, that's probably what makes you tick, I suppose.
Yeah, no, definitely. Listen, you need hands on the ball first and foremost, and I think both kickouts give us a platform to do that. We would be very happy with both kickouts, and then obviously there was a lot of turnovers as well. The problem for us was that we were giving the ball away then at the other end, and having worked really hard and then transitioning up the field and then losing the ball again. A double or triple transition, it doesn't matter how fit they are. People are gonna feel the pinch in that regard, and so yeah, we took care of the ball better in the second half, and that gave us more energy then to actually do. Defend properly in the phases when it was needed.
Experience hospitality the Northwest way at the Everglades Hotel. Located on the banks of the River Foyle, the Everglades Hotel is just minutes from the centre of Derry, Londonderry, with free on-site guest car parking. Whether you're here for a family meal, a big celebration, or simply a peaceful retreat, we'll make your experience as memorable as the sights in the city. Visit Everglades Hotel Derry for accommodation bookings, the latest menus, live shows and events, and much, much more. See you there.
And Mal Cavan crossed out of the championship at the weekend as well. They had the daunting task of going down to Killarney to face Kerry, and this one probably went to form. I'm not sure there would have been too many giving Cavan much of a chance, and if they did have a chance, they were going to have to hope that David Clifford would have an off day, but he, I think he finished with 3-7. He was just on it.
Yeah, he was, and even from early on, he cut inside. I think it was Niall Carlin, and it was 2-2 at that stage, and I suppose it settled reasonably well. But then to lose, I think it was Niall. He picked up the black card then at that stage, and it's even more difficult. And you're thinking to yourself, where's this going to go from now? And David Clifford was. He scored 10 goals this year, and he missed the first couple of league games. He's on a different level in terms of taking men on. The fact that he can just steal your ground, he just cuts across a wee bit like Shane Walsh did to Keelan Doherty. He just cuts across the defender's path, and it's very difficult to defend against that. So it was always going to be a real uphill battle. Like Paddy Lynch kicked a couple of, I think he finished with 12 points, and a few 2-pointers threw into that as well, and that probably gave Cavan a bit of a foothold into the game. And then I remember looking at the scoreboard graphic at one stage, like Evan Crowe had got a goal, but I think it was like 3-17 to 1-17 late on. It wasn't beyond them. Like you touched on earlier, we're down, we're able to claw back. But Kerry I don't think they're ever going to lose. I know it's about Cavan on here, but from the Ulster side of things, but I just felt that Kerry, after being stung the week before, were never going to lose. But obviously they've lost Diarmuid O'Connor, which is a big loss, for them going forward into this weekend, because like Cavan were without James Smith, and I don't think Gerard McKiernan came on at any stage, so they were missing a couple of key players as well, and it shows you the benefit of having them. But a disappointing end to the campaign. When you think we went to like remember Damien was on here just after the Mayo game where they went to Castlebar and just did an absolute number in Mayo, and they just haven't been able to get back to that level. And I suppose they've had a couple of tricky games with Tyrone as well, so it leaves them probably a disappointing end to the season. But I suppose going into next year they'll just have to reassess and see where they go now. But it's hard to know where Kerry are now as well, actually. You know, as much as Cavan's out and it's another one of our Ulster teams gone from the race, but it's just hard to know. I know we'll be talking about it on Thursday's pod when it's more of a preview show, but I definitely think it's going to be a bit of a test for Kerry this weekend, and I think that's the issue. I think that's the issue they've always had. They've always had question marks of where they are, and then somebody like Tyrone or Armagh comes along and in a semi-final or a quarter-final and tells them exactly where they are, and puts them out on their backside. So I think that's the danger they'll have this week. But from Cavan's point of view, just a tricky way to finish away from home and on the end of a Clifford masterclass.
And Fermanagh were knocked out of the Tailteann Cup as well. They were in the semi-finals. They were in Croke Park on Sunday and lost out to Kildare, who are have been the favourites for the competition.
Yeah, that's the end of the road for Fermanagh this year, and they're beaten by 7 points, and they couldn't really have any complaints. So they squandered quite a few opportunities. Quite a lot of the chat, just from reading the report and post-match interview, centred around the weather. It was a very rainy day, and so they're the more powerful, imposing, experienced team. And the weather sort of forced Sean McNally to go long from his kickouts, and Sean had a very good game under the high ball and whatnot, but it forced him to go long from the kickouts, and so they're made hay in the middle sector. They more or less completely dominated. And Kieran Donnelly was saying it didn't really suit the side, the weather, that they're a smaller, more mobile team and whatnot, and just didn't really benefit them. But at the same time, they couldn't really have any complaints. They were the better team, and it was always going to be a big enough ask for Fermanagh to win that game. So I suppose they'll take stock of the season. There's been some good days, some bad days. Mostly good, I think, but they'll be disappointed because I suppose they had their set sight on at very least a touch in the cup final, and they've missed out again.
So we're going to hear from Fermanagh captain Declan McCusker. Barry O'Donnell caught up with him in Croke Park yesterday.
A couple of games there for us in the second half at times, and then struggled big time in our own kickouts. Couldn't get our hands on the ball. When we did, a couple times they surrounded us and turned us over. We just struggled to create scoring chances that we had probably been creating the last few games. That's part of that's down to their quality too. They were fit to stop us maybe 1v1s where we were getting away in other games, and just struggled to win our own kickouts and struggled to create enough scoring opportunities, and up their good side.
I was trying about. You just couldn't. It was the frustrating thing was that we could never really test their psyche, because you know the way they were hitting all these ways. You thought, geez, if we can cling in here, we can cling in here to the last 5 minutes.
I know. I thought actually we had a chance to get back to 1 or maybe 2, and I think if we did, we could have put real pressure on them, but then didn't take those opportunities. And then they were comfortable. 2-pointer they kicked was a big turning point, and we just didn't take our scoring opportunities. Didn't create enough, and then the ones we did create, we didn't take. But
it's 2 outings at Croke though, Declan, in a couple of weeks, and I know it's raw and all, but I suppose boys take experiences, good and bad experiences from the season. Just it's hoping to hoping to build on them positively.
There's a lot of young boys there, and those experiences will stand them over the next few years, and hopefully they're back here a lot more.
And there's one to Tailteann, 2 quarterfinals and the semi-final this year. Just you hope it.
Hopefully go a step or 2 further next year. Yeah. But there's enough quality there to push on. Hopefully we do.
So our weekly highlights then, looking back at the weekend, and player of the week, Mal, me and using agreement, we both went with Downs Owen Murdoch.
Yeah, I thought he was brilliant, and that's a couple of weeks in a row he's put in big performances, and I would say, Conor Laverty, everybody in Down will just be hoping he can build on this and, have a good serious club championship, but he was involved in everything. And what I liked about him over those past couple of weeks, Sean, he just ran directly at the crossbar. There was no sideways movement at all. He just went through the middle, and the kick out that he won for their first goal was brilliant, and a great player. But unfortunately, from unfortunately, from his point of view and for the rest of the GA's point of view, we're not going to see him again in county colours until next year.
Now, you went with David Clifford. We spoke about him, his 3-7 haul against Cavan.
Yeah, I thought it'd be boring and give some heralded player called David Clifford a bit of a shout. Sometimes in a funny sort of way, I don't think he nearly gets credit he deserves because we are so accustomed to his brilliance. And only for his 3-7 against Cavan, I think Kerry could have been a baller yesterday, and they're arguably a wee bit overly reliant on him at the present. But I suppose his brother Paddy coming back in there's a big boost for them when you look ahead to their Mal game.
And we all went to the same result, and it was probably an obvious one. It was the Dublin Hurlers overturning Limerick.
What a result! Like Limerick are a proper super pair. It's the equivalent of the Dubs Jim Gavin team being beaten. Maybe the time that Donnygal beat them in 2014, where it was this is more of a shock than that. But like to do it with a man less for so long, and the save Sean Brennan made at the end was, I think it was from Aaron Gillan. It won the game. Like Limerick probably would have found a wee bit of momentum, a wee bit of energy at that point. But what a result for Dublin. And like Niall O'Callaghan, I'm not pronouncing his name right. I'm really sure on that, but like he won an All-Ireland club with Na Fianna, and now he's got Dublin to the last four. What a result!
And our shock of the week again. Now we all picked the same ones, and it was Kildare defeating Armagh ladies, and that's Armagh knocked out the championship.
Yeah, maybe it's a wee bit unfair in Kildare to say it was a shock because they're a very talented team, obviously. But I suppose that's Armagh ladies team harboured pretensions in recent years of going all the way to All Ireland, and they've a very good team, but it just didn't happen for them against Kildare, which is a pity, really.
Our score of the week, I went for Owen Murdoch's goal. The fact it was all about him. He worked at the turnover back in defence, and by the time the ball's in the net, it's him putting it there. So Owen Murdoch's goal was my score of the week. And Niall, you went for Kieran Thompson's goal for Donnygal.
Yeah, Mal mentioned earlier was his first ever goal for Donnygal, which is a wee bit of a surprise. I cracking finish, and the loud number 3 nearly tried to pull the shirt of his back, but he's a strong buck, Kieran, and then he unleashed the brilliant. Well, it was pretty much an unstoppable shot to the corner of the net, and Donnygal never really looked back after that goal, Sean.
And Armagh, you went with John McGill's goal for down.
Yeah, I'm a bit of a kick-out geek. Ronan Burns against the breeze, kicked the ball over the top of midfield. Galway won't be happy with how they defended it, but Owen Murdoch did brilliantly well to gather it. And he just, as I said earlier, ran through the middle, but the finish from John McGill was top drawer. Bottom corner, but top drawer, and he seems to be making a habit of that. And again, hopefully something Down fans can look forward to next year. What a goal.
And Kelsey MacArthur, the Antrim Camogue, was your unsung hero, man.
Yeah, I think she may get a couple of goals. They beat Meath to book their semi-final spot. And I suppose when you think about Antrim Camogue, you're chatting about Roisin McCormick, Katrine Dobbin, Lucia McNaughton, all the players who have consistently stepped up for them over the years. But that's 2 goals any day of the week is a good bit of work. And people in Antrim Camogue will know who she is, but it's good to see that everybody else can see that she's there as well, and they'll have a real say in that All-Ireland race. And
now you went for Owen Murdoch as your unsung hero.
Yeah, I suppose I wanted to get him in somewhere, given the name David Clifford as player of the week, and I know he's getting a lot of plaudits both today and yesterday, but maybe there's an argument to be made that he is underrated, given that he hasn't talked about that much in maybe the national press and whatnot, but he is one of the best players in the country, and I think he would definitely warrant an All-Star nomination this year anyway, Sean.
I went with Finbar Roarday for my unsung hero. I'm not sure how unsung he is at the minute. I think he's probably the front runner for Young Player of the Year at this stage, but a lot of football still to be played yet, obviously.
I think he's unsung because he's got a new haircut, so he's a different Finbar Roarday
now. He's been playing brilliant stuff, definitely throughout the year. So that's all we have time for. That's our review show. And as usual, we'll be back on Thursday. There's a couple of massive quarterfinals to look forward to, and obviously the quarterfinal draw took place this morning. So it's Tyrone against Dublin, Meath against Galway, the All-Ulster clash of Monaghan and Donegal, and Armagh taking on Kerry as well. So probably by the time, as we said earlier, by the time you're listening to this, you'll probably know dates and times and everything else. So 4 cracking games to look forward to, and we're going to look forward to them all on Thursday. So thanks everybody for tuning in. Thanks to Mal and Nell for coming on this morning again, and we'll see everybody on Thursday.
Thanks, Sean.